Destiny 2 was one of 2017's biggest games, and despite being over a year old, the game still has a loyal following and a thriving community. Being Bungie's first PC port in nearly 13 years, needless to say that many were nervous, but also curious as to see what Bungie would deliver. Thankfully, when the game did release, optimization was on point for high-end systems, and gamers everywhere rejoiced at the fact that Destiny 2 was an excellent PC game. But most gamers can't afford 1080 Ti's or RTX 2080s. So then how does the budget-friendly 1050 Ti handle this game, and can you play at max settings? Okay, so if you want a comprehensive review of the 1050 Ti, the card in the upper right hand corner will take you to our most recent review of the card, and our consensus was that it's still a capable card for 900p gaming. If you want to check out the review, click the card to check out some other benchmarks. Okay, so to get these benchmarks started, let's discuss the test system. The heart of our PC is the Intel i3-8100. This CPU, combined with 32 gigs of DDR4 RAM, should isolate graphics performance and let our Gigabyte GTX 1050 Ti achieve its maximum performance. To store Destiny 2, we will be using a Barracuda 2TB 7200 RPM HDD, which shouldn't present any bottlenecks with read or write times. And also, Rivertoon Statistics Server isn't supported in Destiny 2, and neither are any overlays, so to get our average FPS, we actually watched our footage and took a reading about every 10 seconds. So all our numbers today will be very rough, so keep that in mind. As for how we're benchmarking, we played through the opening level of the game at each resolution at different graphics presets. So without any further ado, let's get into some performance figures. So starting off with the lowest resolution on our test suite, 720p max settings provided no issue for the 1050 Ti with an average frame rate of 82 FPS. Now, the game at this resolution doesn't look great, and most of the special effects work that you get from turning up the settings isn't really noticeable. Also, the anti-aliasing in Destiny 2 isn't very effective, and at this resolution, sawtooth edges in pixel crawl are very noticeable and kind of distracting at times. For example, look at the side of this pistol here. It just looks kinda funky. If 720p isn't your cup of tea, turning the resolution up to 900p is an excellent choice. As you can see from the graph, there's a pretty linear increase to frame rate as you turn the settings down, and in all honesty, low settings still looks great in this game. Here's a side-by-side comparison between the highest and lowest settings, and both of them still look excellent. Now, there are some degradations to visual quality, most noticeably in anti-aliasing and texture filtering, but as it stands, low settings are still functional, which can't be said for a lot of other current generation games. As for frame rate, max settings at 900p is very playable, and performance actually surprised me. With an average frame rate of 68, the 1050 Ti makes relatively light work of this game, but sudden frame rate drops occur quite often. If you were to drop settings down to high, you'd be welcomed by a 10% performance gain, as well as eliminating those sudden drops. As for medium and low settings, the card performs excellently at 900p. Frame rate drops are mostly eliminated, and frame rates are good enough to show where the 1050 Ti stands in terms of performance. If you were playing Destiny 2 at 900p, this card could easily handle a mixture of medium, high, and max settings at a locked 60 FPS. But what if you preferred a game at 1080p? Well, the first thing that you'd notice is a much sharper image. Not only do models and characters look sharper, but it's much easier to see the lower quality settings when you drop them. So if you want to play with max settings, the 1050 Ti can technically play it, and with an average frame rate of 34, the game seems to be alright. But the biggest issue is simply the frame drops. No matter how low we drop the settings, sudden frame drops present an unpleasant experience. The moment any sort of particle effect kicks off on screen, the frame rates drop by a solid 10 to 15 frames. Now, this issue can be shown by the frame rate graph, where max settings doesn't fit in with the rest of the trend, and this brings up an issue that presented itself back in Black Ops 4. The issue is simply that the memory bandwidth of the 1050 Ti is too narrow to allow these huge, complex sprite effects. Now, this is remedied by dropping effects quality, and when reducing the setting, we saw an average frame rate that more or less fit in with the rest of the trend. So because of this, we weren't able to get a solid 60 FPS at 1080p, and even at low settings, the average frame rate hung at just under 60 FPS. So if you're looking to play Destiny 2 at 1080p on the 1050 Ti, then locking the frame rate to 30 and setting the game to a mixture of medium and high settings should provide an excellent experience. But if you want better performance, then setting the resolution scaling to 90% should clear up some frame rate issues. And at the end of the day, it's all really personal preference as to what you want. 720p at max settings is very playable, but it has some pretty horrific aliasing, and you can't really appreciate all the graphical flair you get from turning up the settings. At 900p, the game looks better, and although turning up settings degrades performance, it's easier to appreciate the look of the game, and we found that it's a great mixture of visuals and performance. And finally, 1080p is playable on this card, and I actually enjoyed myself when playing simply because it was a visual treat, but fighting the game due to frame rate issues kinda got annoying after a bit. Lowering settings and resolution scaling does remedy this, and locking the game to 30 FPS would fix all of the issues, but I personally found that Destiny 2 was much more enjoyable at 60 FPS and above. If you're wondering if Destiny 2 is playable on this card, it definitely is. But don't be afraid to turn down some settings. 900p is a great sweet spot between gorgeous visuals and buttery smooth performance, and it's ultimately what we'd recommend playing Destiny 2 at if you're rocking this card. So thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe and click the bell icon so you'll be notified about all our future uploads. And also, if you want to help us find more hardware to benchmark, then please consider checking out our Patreon page linked below. And finally, tell us, how do you feel about the 1050 Ti? For $150, you can't really go wrong with this card, and we still think it's an excellent value, but we do definitely recognize that it's not for everyone. We can't wait to see what you guys have to say. And also real quick, I just want to tell you guys thank you for 600 subscribers. I can't believe that we've gained over 100 subscribers this month, and it's kind of unprecedented growth that I've never really seen before. So thank you. So anyways, thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.